Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed my tutorials and my sample gameplay videos for 12 Realms. I'm going to give you my thoughts on the game, but before I do so, I want to let you know this review is actually going to be based on the basic 12 Realms game, plus the Ancestors Legacy expansion, which I don't actually own, but 12 Realms creators or producers, Mage Company, was very nice to send me an envelope full of a whole bunch of files that I can do some cutting out, just so I can actually play the game and see exactly what that expansion adds to the game and show you just how much that does change the gameplay. And what I actually want to do is, once I'm done with the actual 12 Realms series, I'm going to do a quick little video where I'm going to go over just everything that the 12 Realms Ancestors Legacy expansion adds to the game, how it gives you some extra gameplay, but I just want to give this preface because when I do that, I'm not actually going to be using the official version of the components that come with the game. It's basically going to look very print and play, and that's simply because I was given the cardstock sheets for everything to do the cutting out, and I laminated it so it looked a little bit better. But just so you know, what you're going to be seeing when I do those videos is not going to be final components, so don't judge exactly what you see. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and insert a really quick clip here that gives you a basic overview of how 12 Realms plays. After that, come right back and I'll give you my final review of 12 Realms. In 12 Realms, the players are heroes taken from fairy tales, taken from myth, taken from legends, working together to try to defeat a Dark Lord who's doing his best to destroy all the realms. These Dark Lords don't work alone. Every single realm has their own specific Dark Lord who is also working together to bring about the fall of all these wonderful realms. Not only do you have to contest with multiple Dark Overlords, you also have to contest with their minions, and the fact that every one of these Dark Overlords is completely immune to your effects to destroy them unless you can find all the artifacts of power, bring them together with one hero, and fight these evil creatures bent on world domination. Our heroes will have to travel all over the realms working together to try to gather treasures, which will help them to buy better equipment to become more well equipped to take care of these evil dark creatures. All while doing their best to keep the populations of these dark invaders low, because as the level of these invaders goes up, the track continues to rise. If the players are unable to defeat the final Dark Overlord for each realm before the track reaches 20, all of our players have lost. Can our heroes work together using their talents wisely, trying to stop the ongoing onslaught of these evil invaders while trying to prevent the realms themselves from being destroyed? That is 12 Realms, the board game. Twelve Realms is designed to be a light, cooperative, family-style game, and how do I know that? Because it says so right on the back of the box. That's a light, cooperative game, and in that aspect, they succeeded admirably in the design of this game. This game has a very strong, almost Disney feel to it. I mean, you have the princess with the animals, you have the nutcracker who happens to be the hero, you have all these different, almost Disney-esque style realms that are being conquered by these lords of darkness. It almost has a strong feel. If you ever played the video game Kingdom Hearts, it actually reminds me of that game where you have heroes going from realm to realm to realm trying to stop these dark overlords from taking over all these realms and bringing darkness to all the lands. It also, in a very positive way, also reminds me of the Eagle Griffin games Fantastica, which also has a very light theme layered on top of a game that brings imagination to life. 12 Realms is also an extremely modular game. This is a game that's designed for multiple age ranges and multiple different ways to play. You have the very basic game, which is basically designed as a game that you play with the younger kids, maybe ages 5 and up. It's not the kind of game that's going to give any real challenge to the teenagers or up. But that's the great thing about 12 Realms, that if you want to have a challenge and you have the older kids, the game is very modular and you can start increasing the difficulty by adding various things such as adding these black keeps, which are going to make the game much more challenging for the heroes. You can add in more powerful Lords of Darkness who will be more challenging than some of the other Lords of Darkness in the game. You can add in more realms to outnumber the heroes, so maybe only have 3 heroes going after 4 realms, increasing the difficulty. You can add in the petrified invaders, which are going to be much more difficult to defeat and make it even more challenging for our heroes to try to remove these blights from the lands. Or if you don't even want to play the game cooperatively, you can play the game in many different ways, not even including the expansion. Just in the very basic game, there's an overlord mechanic where all the heroes except one are working together to try to defeat these Lords of Darkness, and one player is going to control the Lords of Darkness, and he's going to control where the bad guys are going, where these dark castles are going to be going, where things are going to be happening on the lands, where the treasures, where the artifacts are going, and they're going to control the rate of the game, almost like a game such as Descent or something similar, where you have an overlord versus a group of heroes kind of game. And that's the greatest thing about 12 Realms, is how modular it is, how much you can add in, how much you can take away from the game to make the game either easier for the younger players or more difficult for the older players, or you can even throw everything in. And if you want to start reducing the difficulty a little bit because you like all the additions, but you don't want the extra challenge, you can even throw in the things such as the inn, the bazaar, and even the stables, where the players can go to purchase more things to help their heroes become more powerful. And not only that, even to add more to the modular nature of the game, the difficulty of the game can be adjusted just by simply choosing what kind of heroes you're going to use to help defend these lands. You have two sides to all these heroes. Some sides of these heroes are more powerful in certain situations. Some are weaker in certain situations based on the realms that are on the board, based on the powers that you need, based on the weaknesses of the villains, based on the weaknesses of the invaders, and based on everything you need to capture the treasures, capture the artifacts, and to win the game. And if that's not enough variety for you, add in the Ancestors Legacy expansion, which is going to add in even more varieties of gameplay. You want to like a cooperative game, but you want it so somebody can be a betrayer, maybe one of the players is out to win? Add in the ninja rules, which means one of the players is secretly trying to make sure that the Dark Overlords win the game, except you don't know who it is. You don't like the idea that you're always going after the same Dark Overlords every single time you play? Well, you have the option of maybe adding in the witches, which are an additional objective that you're trying to win. And when you play that way, it doesn't even matter about the Dark Overlords. Sure, if they bring one of these run boards to level 20, somebody is going to lose, and that somebody's going to be the heroes. But at least you're not constantly concentrating on those overlords. You're actually concentrating on trying to defeat these witches who have their own objectives to try to make life more difficult for our heroes. If you don't like the fact that it seems like you keep getting more and more powerful the longer you play the game, you keep adding cards, you keep adding talents, you keep getting more powerful, well, there's now invaders, which now start poisoning our heroes, which mean you permanently lose access to some of your talents. Want even more challenge? There's now invaders who start stripping away your talents. There's now invaders who start stealing your special cards and make you more powerful. What I'm basically saying here is, if you want more, this is the kind of game that is perfectly suited for you, because the more you want, the more that is available to add to the game. It's also hard to ignore the component quality that comes with this base game. Now, the game quality for all the components is really done well. The cards here are very thick. These are good quality card stock. They're going to last a while. But what I really like about the game is the quality of these miniatures. This is almost Cool Mini or Not quality miniatures, which is a miniature company that people spend lots of money, hundreds of dollars, to try to get a hold of their miniatures because they're so nice. And these miniatures match that quality. They're very highly detailed. You can see the minor details, such as the ruffles on D'Artagnan's overcoat. You can see the extra animals, the rabbit, the little squirrel, and everything on the, well, I almost called her the Cinderella, but you know what I mean, the extra things on her miniature there. The Sugar Plum Fairy, you see the minor details. You can see the eyes and everything, the high quality of the little jug that she's carrying, her little potion jug. The quality on these miniatures is fantastic. And not only that, every time they do a Kickstarter, Mage Company throws out one of these Kickstarters for 12 Realms. They have a limited run where you can actually buy all these miniatures pre-painted, and I believe they actually pre-paint them by hand, and they usually have only like 100 or maybe 200 copies. But when they paint these things, they do a fantastic job painting these, so that's an extra option available to you. And speaking of options, if you really want to, you can even have the Dark Overlords themselves, or Lords of Darkness. You can actually get miniatures for all these Lords of Darkness, so you can actually have them on the board along with the heroes, which looks really cool. So the components for this game are really great. Artwork, quality of the miniatures, quality of the cards and everything. And matter of fact, I actually have the most recent version of the rulebook, which is version 2.2. And I know there's some earlier versions of the rulebook that had some rules discrepancies in them, but this version of the rulebook is really fantastic. It answers all your questions. There's even an FAQ at the end of the book, and there's also a section which is going to take every one of these cards, every one of these powers, and explain to you exactly what they do for every one of these cards. Unfortunately, 12 Realms is not going to be for everyone. It does have a much lighter theme, almost a Disney-style theme that's not going to go over for a lot of gamers. I can use another example of the game Fantastica, which is another game which has a very light theme. I mean, it's a game where you're basically using a toothbrush as a wizard's wand. So it's a game where you're trying to bring yourself into a fantasy theme. 12 Realms is no different. This is a game where you are basically trying to put yourselves in the shoes of heroes, almost Disney-style heroes. You have Snow White, even though she's not called Snow White, that's basically what you have here. You have Robin Hood, an anthropomorphic hero. You have the Nutcracker, definitely a very Disney theme with these bad guys who also have a very Disney theme. You have the Rat King and everything. So this definitely has a very light theme to it. And this theme is not going to be for everyone. If you can get into the theme, the game has done a great job of bringing that theme to life. But again, that theme is not going to be for every single player. Also, the basic rules for the game can be a double-edged sword. While the basic rules are very light and easy for the younger players, they're not really going to give any kind of challenge for the older players. Matter of fact, the older players, the game is so simple, it's actually possible as an older player to play so efficiently that the track for the invasion counter will never advance because you can kill the invaders faster than they can spawn in the realms. And remember, this track has to get to level 16 or higher before the invader is going to enter the realm. And if you kill the invaders faster than they can spawn, the invader track's never going to go up, and it's basically technically going to be possible to play the game forever in a way because the bad guys are never going to come out. And that is how easy the basic game is. Now, I think that's fantastic for the younger players, but unfortunately, it does mean for the older players, you do have to start throwing in those extra modules, the extra rules, and the extra challenges. Otherwise, you're going to find the game to be extremely easy. The game can also be very random, and this is the kind of randomness that's inherent to all these kind of cooperative games where the gameplay is based on the draws of cards. You can see it in games such as Pandemic, you can see it in games such as Defenders of the Realm. Sometimes the way the cards are going to come into play are going to be extremely random, and it's either going to be too challenging or not challenging enough based on how the cards are coming into play. And again, it's no different than what I've seen in games such as Pandemic and Defenders of the Realm. Both those games can have this issue. I've played Pandemic before where I've drawn a card, got an infection, and drawn a city, got an explosion, which caused another explosion, which caused another explosion, and basically brought about the end of the game just because of the randomness of the draws. That can happen in 12 realms too. It's quite possible that you'll have 4 realms out, and this is going to be much more prominent when you're playing with more realms, but you're going to get 4 realms out, and you're going to draw a card for the Cherry Blossom, 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 and you're going to get a large invasion in one of these realms. Then all the heroes are going to have to scramble to try to go over to this realm to try to save this realm, and then your next card draws is going to be for the Fairy Kingdom, Fairy Kingdom, Fairy Kingdom, and everybody's going to be rushing back into this realm trying to save this realm. It's going to feel like you're almost chasing your tail. Again, it's not going to happen every time. It's going to happen more the more boards you add. I've noticed in the 2 to 3 realm games, it doesn't happen quite as much. But as soon as you get that 4th realm out, it does happen a little bit more. But it's definitely something you're going to have to pay attention to. And finally, while I said the components for this game are done very, very well, there are a few things that may stick out for you when you play the game, or at least when you're still learning the game. First of all, a lot of these symbols for some of these cards that you can pick up may be pretty darn easy to figure out. You get a hero such as the Golden Knight. He adds 2 extra sword talents, extra combat talents. Pretty darn easy one to figure out. But when you get one such as the Guild Thief, which has Flame H, Shield, IN +1, you have no idea what the heck those symbols mean. Fortunately, they were nice enough to include in the back of the rulebook a section which is going to explain what every one of those symbols mean. But those symbols are a little bit tough to decipher, and it's not quite the difficulty of Race for the Galaxy. I'm not even going to assume it's anywhere near that difficulty to learn, but do understand those symbols are going to be a little bit strange to learn when you're first learning how to play the game. Also, and while I said the rest of the components of the game are really, really fantastic, quality miniatures, quality art, and everything like that, I will have to say there is a slight disappointment that the fact that the dice here are silkscreen versus engraved. Now, I understand why this is done, and I've actually had conversations with other manufacturers such as Soda Pop Miniatures, and they've actually explained that anytime you have a die that's multicolored and engraved, the price for one of these dice is so extremely high, you can actually manufacture multiple miniatures for the price of one single engraved multicolored die. So it's kind of frustrating because that does mean that since they're silkscreen, they are slowly going to rub off. That's a problem, but like I said, it is a cost thing, so it is what you have to accept, unless you want to spend probably $4 or $5 just for one single die. The modular nature of this game is also kind of a double-edged sword when you're playing this game. This game can be very fantastic, but it can also be sometimes occasionally just a little bit too random based on what kind of additions you're adding to the game and based on what kind of heroes you're playing with and also what kind of realms you're playing with. And what I mean by that is some of these heroes are really fantastic at defending certain realms. Some of these heroes are not good at defending other kinds of realms. That's going to add to the challenge of the game and make the game sometimes seem impossible or sometimes make the game seem too easy, again based on just what kind of realms you decide to play with. I also don't think that the game is at its best with only one realm. I think the game plays best with at least two realms, plays really good with three realms, and when you add that fourth realm, you add a little bit extra level of chaos, which can make the game feel a little bit more random than it is with the three players. And that's just because you're going to have so many more cards and the potential for more invaders to go to certain realms versus others, just because you're going to take all these decks of cards and shuffle them together, and you're going to get that randomness of almost 72 cards, putting different invaders in different realms. So one realm, not the best way to play it. Four realms, still good, but not quite the best way to play it. I think it plays best with three realms, and I think you want to always make sure that you're always making sure to pick heroes that are tailored to protect the realms the best. Of course, if you think 12 realms is too easy, feel free to go ahead and pick heroes who aren't quite equipped to go ahead and defend the realm that you're trying to protect. Make sure their talents don't match up with the treasures, make sure their talents don't match up with the artifacts, and make sure their talents don't really match up with the invaders that are protecting that realm, and I can guarantee you'll get your teeth kicked really, really quickly and see just how challenging 12 realms truly can be. Now, I think in a way it's a positive, and in a way it's a negative. Just know that this game can be very customized to increase the difficulty, or customized to minimize the difficulty, just depending on how you want to play the game. There's one other minor quibble I have with the game, and this is very, very minor. It didn't really matter once I learned the game, but when I was first learning the game, it was a little bit of a challenge for me because all the invaders who give a reward when you defeat them, there's no symbol on those little invader tokens to let you know or remind you about the rewards you get, such as the dwarves and the sprites who give you a gold when you kill them. There's no reminder of that fact, and what I did to overcome that is when I was first learning the game, anytime I had one of those invaders, instead of putting their card in a discard pile, I left them off to the side of the board to kind of give me a reminder that every time I defeated one of those invaders, I needed to remember to get the reward. Once all those invaders of that type that matched the card were defeated, I simply put them in the discard pile. But again, when you're first learning the game, if you don't do that, expect to occasionally forget things such as drawing a gold when you defeat a dwarf, draw a gold when you defeat a sprite, or something similar to that. And when you add in the extra expansion from Lost Legacy, you're going to start doing that also to remind you of the special abilities of those invaders, such as the poison, such as the ability of them to defeat or destroy some of your cards, and all the other extra special powers all these invaders bring to the game. Every time I do a review for a board game, it's always important for me to cover two things: family friendliness and just how well a game plays in multiple player accounts. And I think I've gone over family friendliness about this game enough. This game is a fantastic family style game. It's great for the younger players, ages 5 and up, who want to play the very basic game. Matter of fact, the basic game is simple enough that the younger players can actually play the game without mom or dad. But since it's a cooperative game, it does mean they can play with mom and dad, where everybody's working together, trying to defeat a common enemy as a family game, and you can really enjoy just how awesome this game as a family game truly can be. The game is also modular, which means that if you have the older kids, you can still have fun with the game, playing it as a cooperative game, increasing the difficulty just enough, as much as you need to give a challenge to the older kids. The game has a variety of play modes, from the cooperative mode to the competitive mode. Everything about this game is just designed in a way to be very, very family friendly. The game also lists as a game for 1 to 6 players, and I have not played this game as a 6-player game yet, so I can't comment on that at all, unfortunately. I have played the game up to 4 players, and I've kind of played around as a 5-player game where 4 heroes versus a 5th player who is playing the Dark Lord player, and the game works just fine. I don't know how it works with 6 players, but I have seen that it does seem to play very well on multiple player accounts. I will suggest, though, that if you decide to play the game solo or play alone, as I've already said, you have at least 2 realms and at least 2 heroes. And if you want to really increase the challenge for yourself, if you're an adult and you want to challenge, 2 heroes, 3 realms, and you're going to have one heck of a challenge, and you're really going to enjoy the game. With 12 realms, the designers set out to create a very light cooperative game, and in that aspect, they have succeeded extremely well. Not only that, they've created a game that's extremely family friendly. You have a game that's playable for multiple age ranges, easily playable with the younger kids. It's cooperative, which is always great as a family game. The game is modular. You can add in multiple different things to make the game more challenging, make the game easier, or you can even play the game different ways, and that's just the base game itself. You pick up the expansion, you can add in hidden traders, you can add in extra mechanics, you can increase the difficulty, more variety of invaders, more challenges, just more of everything. The game is done very, very well in that aspect. Now, while there may be some hiccups with the game, there may be the potential for some chaotic moments which don't make sense. You may occasionally lose the game because of a very bad card draw. You may lose the game because you didn't quite pick the quite right heroes for the realms that you're trying to save. But that just to me shows that the game does offer multiple different difficulty levels. Because once you learn the game, you kind of learn which heroes are really good for certain realms if you want an easier time, which heroes are bad for certain realms if you want a more challenging time, and then you have all this modular gameplay that you throw in to increase the difficulty, lower the difficulty, play the game with the younger ones, play the game with the older ones, play it cooperatively, competitively, or however you want to play. The best thing I can say about 12 Realms is it's very modular. They did a great job in that aspect, creating that light cooperative game. This has been another off-the-shelf board game review looking at 12 Realms. If you have any questions, leave them in the YouTube comments below. Subscribe over on the YouTube channel. If you have any questions, send me an email at offtheshelfboardgamereview at otsbgr@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.